the Synod on the Family in Rome begins amid controversy. One cardinal wants to quickly admit divorced and remarried Catholics to the sacraments. Now a group of Vatican cardinals are publicly refuting that idea in a new book. Among them, the prefect of the Vatican's Apostolic Signatura, Raymond Cardinal Burke. He joins us in Rome for a no-holds-barred exclusive interview. And later, could you live on the equivalent of 1 gallon of water a day? Some people on the planet are forced to do just that. George McGraw of Dig Deep Water returns to discuss water poverty around the world and his 4-liter challenge. And finally, students in the U.S. continue to lag behind much of the world in math. But why? Reid FRERICHS, CEO of PRIMAL MATH, is here to explain and offer an innovative and fun solution. The world over begins right now.
Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. Cardinal Raymond Burke, George McGraw, and Reid FRERICHS are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's program, send us a tweet at Raymond Arroyo. And if you want to chime in on the show, send us an email at worldover@EWTN.com. I guess you can chime in on Twitter as well. We've got a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. Marriage and family are topping the headlines in Rome. The long-anticipated Synod of Bishops on the Family is underway. The meeting is officially to address pastoral challenges to the family in the context of evangelization. Opening the 2 weeks of formal talks on Monday, Pope Francis urged the nearly 200 cardinals, bishops, priests, and laymen gathered to speak their minds without fear or concern for human respect. Since February, much of the discussion surrounding the Synod has focused on the possibility of allowing divorced and remarried Catholics a fast pass to communion while avoiding the annulment process. The proposal is being championed by Cardinal Walter Kasper. A few of the items under consideration thus far. Language has become a hot topic. On Tuesday, the bishops considered a proposal to move away from strong language with regard to immoral behavior. Examples raised include the Catechism's description of homosexual behavior as intrinsically disordered, or the description of cohabitation as living in sin. English language spokesman for the Synod, Father Thomas Rosica, said such phrases are not necessarily words that invite people to draw closer to Christ and to the Church. And on Thursday, Cardinal Francesco Coco Palmiero, a member of Pope Francis's new commission to streamline and reform the annulment process, said that he favors letting local bishops make annulment decisions in certain cases. That would be a sweeping change in that it would, for the first time, take the Church's judicial position, or process rather, out of the equation. He also suggested removing the automatic appeal for annulment cases. Stay tuned for our exclusive interview with Cardinal Raymond Burke, who has his own very strong opinions of both of these proposals. Meanwhile, the Vatican has created a bit of a row with the press who are covering the Synod. Breaking with tradition, daily printed summaries of the bishop's remarks are being withheld. The idea is that conversation without public disclosure will encourage freer debate. In lieu of the printed summaries, Vatican spokesmen are offering daily briefings summarizing the debate, but without saying who said what. Journalists shut out of the proceedings have protested. Cardinal Gerhard Müller, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, is siding with the journalists. In an interview, he said the speeches should be made public, since all Christians have the right to be informed about the intervention of their bishops. So much for that new open process. Meanwhile, despite the attempted media blackout, controversy and contention among prelates is spilling into the news, including Pope Francis himself. In an interview with Argentina's La Nación newspaper, the Holy Father appears to distance himself from those he calls very conservative bishops. This according to an English translation provided by LifeSite News. Pope Francis offered this response when asked if he was worried about the recent book by 5 cardinals opposing Cardinal Kasper's proposal for dealing with divorced and remarried Catholics. The reporter told the Pope the book is, quote, critical of your positions. Pope Francis doesn't answer the question directly, but instead offered, quote, everyone has something to contribute. I even enjoy debating with the very conservative, but only intellectually well-formed bishops, end quote. The Vatican press office repeatedly declined opportunities to elaborate or clarify the Pope's comments, claiming that they were not familiar with the interview. More on the Synod for the Family and that headline-making interview with Cardinal Burke next. And back here on Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear appeals from 5 states where traditional marriage laws had been struck down by lower courts. Same-sex marriages can now essentially take place in Indiana, Oklahoma, Utah, Virginia, and Wisconsin. 6 additional states under those appellate court jurisdictions might soon follow suit. The decision, it should be noted, did not affirm a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. Court observers speculate that the conservative justices may have voted to delay hearing any more gay marriage cases given the position of Justice Kennedy, the swing vote on the court. In recent years, he's voted to strike down sodomy laws and has indicated support for states to legalize gay marriage. And finally tonight, some sad news. Father BENEDICT GROESCHEL, the beloved author of more than 40 books, preacher, and the founder of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, died this past Friday. He was 81. Father GROESCHEL's health had been declining recently following an extended illness. He was a longtime fixture on EWTN for over 25 years. He hosted numerous series, as well as his own live show, Sunday Night Live. He was ordained a priest in 1959 for the Detroit Capuchin province, and he held a master's degree in counseling and a doctoral degree in psychology. He ran a retreat house for priests in Larchmont, New York, and taught pastoral psychology at St. Joseph's Seminary in Yonkers. Father BENEDICT may have been a psychologist by trade, but his heart was always with the poor. He spoke constantly of the need to serve them, which he and his fellow friars did in the U.S., Europe, and Central America. It was an honor to have counted him among my personal friends. And here are some of my favorite moments with Father BENEDICT. Take a look.
Can I ask a question? Something's just been drawing my attention as we're talking here. You have a drowsing hippo here. And he's not a... I mean, he's not even a perky hippo. He's a snoozing, drowsing hippo, wearing your shade of gray. May I ask why this furnishing is prominently displayed here on your desk?
This is my symbol of the ecclesiastical bureaucracy. Not the church, but all churches. Now, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, other religions, they have their bureaucracy.
May I turn the tables on you just for a moment and probe that a bit? Now, why do you believe, and in what way does this corpulent, drowsing hippo resemble the ecclesial bureaucracy, please? Can you break it down for us?
Because he's so old, so ugly, so awkward, not malevolent.
Not malevolent, no. He looks like a very charming hippo. However, you should know, if you get too close, they can take your arm off.
Yes. But that's your problem.
That's my problem. Thanks a lot.
See,
he was a delight, wise and funny and so prayerful. Joining us now from New Jersey is the co-founder of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal and one of Father BENEDICT's closest friends, Father Andrew Apostoli. He joins us from Newark. Father, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Raymond, to be talking with you and with your viewing audience there.
Tell me, what about Father BENEDICT that perhaps we didn't see, that you, as a co-founder of the order and someone who lived with him, worked with him, saw, that reflects on his legacy and what we should know about him as a religious?
Well, you know, Raymond, I always felt it was a great blessing to know him and to be privileged to work with him. We were both Capuchins, but he asked me to come from my province, which was in New Jersey, to go over and work with him in the New York area where he was working at Trinity Retreat. He was an amazing person. I actually heard about him. Never met him for a number of years, but I heard about him when I was just a young high school seminarian. People talked about this young brother that was in the other province, and I couldn't wait to meet him. Then later on, people were telling me, you know, Father Andrew, you look like Father Benedict. You sound like Father Benedict, and you say the same things that he says. So I was so anxious to meet him, and he asked me to come and work with him, and I felt that was a great privilege. He was an amazing person. One thing I would say, Raymond, that characterized him was he had this tremendous zeal, a drive to get things done. He was serving the Lord with all his heart. And I remember when I went to work with him, he said to me one day, he said, Father Andrew, today we are going to have either a three-ring circus day, a roller skate day, or a bilocation day. And to me, that was him. You know, he was always, you know, zealous to do what the Lord wanted. Yeah, and he loved the Lord very deeply.
So many accomplishments. I mean, building the Trinity Retreat House, the Good Counsel homes, which are homes for pregnant mothers, and then, of course, this earlier home that he built for young boys, and the community, the great houses you all have for the homeless in the Bronx, and really now around the world. What do you think will be his legacy, Father Apostoli?
I think two things. Number one, that he was steadfast in his loyalty to the church. He was really a son of the church. Always defended true teaching, even when he took stands when it wasn't very popular, you know, on the issues of the day, when he spoke, you know, our Catholic faith. I think he's going to be known for that, and his direction for so many people, so many priests, so many religious, that he talked about the spiritual life. One great thing he was able to do, he was able to take the traditional teaching of the church and prayer and things like that in the spiritual life and combine it with modern psychology, which is not always easy to do, as we know. Yeah. But he had an amazing way about him. And
that marvelous sense of humor, you know, the favorite line that he told me once, and I'm sure he repeated it to many others, you know, I grew up in Jersey City where the light at the end of the tunnel was Newark. He was great. Nobody like him.
That was him.
Father,
yeah, that was
Father
it. He had these expressions. Yeah. The other thing I would say, you mentioned about his legacy, his love of the poor. He really had a tremendous love of the poor. You know, like at Christmas, people didn't know this. Christmas, Easter, he would always have poor people come to the retreat house or the friary and have a special meal for those days because he knew these people didn't have anything. But he always wanted to make these days special for them. But he always had a great interest and concern for the poor people, and he made it. You know, he really insisted that we had to open our shelter within the first year of our new community being in existence. He wanted that for the homeless, the food giveaway, and so many things that he wanted us to do for the poor. So
he was the complete
legacy,
package.
You know, that's it, the preaching, and so on. He'll be known. His tapes will be going for the next 100 years. You know that?
Yeah, well, Father Andrew, I thank you so much for joining us for this memory and remembering great Father Benedict. And I think you all are a big part of his legacy as well. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Raymond. God bless you.
EWTN and Doug Keck will be doing live coverage of Father Benedict Groeschel's funeral mass on Friday, which will re-air throughout the weekend. You can go to EWTN.com for air times. May Father Benedict Groeschel rest in peace. When we return, the Synod on the Family is underway in Rome. Will the Church eventually change its discipline to accommodate divorced and remarried Catholics? Should it? The head of the Vatican's High Court, Raymond Cardinal Burke, gives us his take in a candid interview you will not want to miss. This is one for the DVRs. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. For the better part of a year, an intense debate has raged at the very upper echelons of the Catholic Church among its cardinals. Last February, Cardinal Walter Kasper, a progressive German bishop, unveiled a proposal that has dominated the conversation surrounding the Synod on the Family in Rome. The Pope has said he wants a robust debate, and some cardinals have delivered. Cardinal Kasper has been on an international tour promoting his ideas for relaxing the annulment process. And now, a new book, Remaining in the Truth of Christ, is rebutting him. The book includes contributions from 5 cardinals, among them Cardinal Raymond Burke, the head of the Apostolic Signatura, the Vatican's Supreme Court. I sat down with Cardinal Burke in Rome to discuss the implications of the Kasper proposal, streamlining the annulment process, and the Synod on the Family, which got underway this week. Here's my very candid interview with Cardinal Raymond Burke at his residence in Rome. I want to start with the Pope praising Cardinal Walter Kasper. This was back in February when the Cardinal issued his proposal in the form of an introductory statement to the Synod that's just beginning here. The Pope said this was profound theology, theology done on one's knees. Given that kind of papal endorsement, was there any hesitancy to critique what Cardinal Kasper was saying and to now become part of a book with a number of other cardinals rebutting most of his argument?
I have to say that, thank God, no, that a number of the cardinals spoke very immediately and very clearly, because the presentation of Cardinal Kasper was such that it demanded a strong response. Otherwise, to give the impression that what he said was acceptable would have been heading us down in a direction contrary to our Lord's own teaching, his very words in the gospel. And so perhaps on the part of some, but I know that a number of cardinals intervened immediately in the matter, in some sense have spoken very clearly on the subject. I think of someone like Cardinal Carlo Caffarda of Bologna, who is a world-class moral theologian and a wonderful archbishop, and he's spoken very clearly about this, given interviews and so forth. And
there seems to be a consensus emerging. You've got Cardinal Pell and Cardinal Mueller, certainly no slouch over the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, yourself, and Cardinal Scola. Many others have joined their voices to this chorus. Who in the college are supportive of Cardinal Kasper's position at this point? Aside from Cardinal Kasper and a few members of the media, I don't see a wide group of cardinals or bishops coming to the defense here.
I really don't either. I'm not good at predicting these things, but I think the media has certainly taken it up as a kind of cause, and really for now this has been going on for 9 months, and the Cardinal Kasper has been going around giving talks in the United States and other places, and he continues to write, to give interviews, and the media have really promoted this. But I saw one news item from Germany where Cardinal Marx apparently said that the German bishops were all supporting him. First of all, I didn't verify whether the report itself was accurate, but I don't believe that. I know some very good bishops in Germany who I can't imagine are supportive of this approach that he's making.
Cardinal Kasper has been very direct in saying what you are a part of, you and these other cardinals, is nothing more than a political act, and that this is, quote, not the way we're to do things in the church. This is the way you do them in politics. He's stunned at the organized effort. Your response?
Well, we are servants of the truth. This is not any kind of political act at all. If you read the book is not polemical. No. The book doesn't promote some particular agenda. The book is at the service of the truth about marriage. That's I didn't choose the title, but it's a brilliant title taken from Familiaris Consortio, remaining in the truth of Christ. And that's what we're trying to underline. And so when Cardinal Kasper gave his presentation and asked for a dialogue about this, asked for a response, some of us got together and we prepared a response. But it's a very scholarly presentation. You will see it. You can read all of the articles that cover the whole aspect of church teaching and discipline on marriage. It's very serene, but it's very carefully focused on the truth of the Catholic teaching as it has been always the Church's teaching. This isn't something that's recent, and it's presented in that way. So I don't understand how the Cardinal can make those kind of accusations that this was politics, this was a plot, nothing of the sort. In fact, it was very hard work for all of us to get together, and we wanted to offer it to the Holy Father and to the Synod in time, and so we had to, the consistory was toward the end of February, and we had to get to work and get this put together.
Now, will you be making sure that this gets into the hands of your brother bishops and cardinals and the fathers of the Synod?
Surely I will, and I'm sure others will be doing the same. But no, we want every member of the Synod. They simply should have this book in order to enjoy the results of the research which the authors have done into the Church's teaching and discipline.
Yeah. I want to cover some of the major points that you touch on in your presentation, but that are covered in the book because they address different aspects of this question: what to do with remarried Catholics who are divorced and wish to enter into communion again. The Pope himself seemed to float the possibility of the Orthodox solution. And he put it this way: after a period of penance, he said, they give a second chance. They allow it. Your thoughts on that? And if that is a licit and valid way, historically speaking, and in the Catholic setting, to proceed?
I think that the clear approach is this. We begin with the words of our Lord when the Pharisees trying to trick him asked him about Moses permitting divorce. And our Lord responded very clearly, it was not so from the beginning. In other words, he underlines that the indissolubility of marriage is part of the natural moral law. And then he teaches very clearly, he said, the man who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. And this teaching had to be very clear because the disciples themselves said to him, well, Lord, if it's that way, it's better not to marry. And then he reminds them that God gives the grace to those who are called to the married state. So if I am married to someone, it's not possible for me to be married to someone else because that marriage is indissoluble. It's for life. And so to say, to give another chance, what does that mean? It has no meaning. As long as I remain married to that person, that it hasn't been shown that the marriage, in fact, although it was entered in good faith, was null because one or the other parties withheld an essential part of the content of marriage consent, or one of the other parties was bound by a prior union or something like that. Then I'm called for my lifetime to be faithful to that marriage. And so they talk about second chances. And the Orthodox, it's very interesting, but I haven't heard a single Orthodox leader praise Cardinal Kasper's intervention and saying, well, isn't it wonderful that you Roman Catholics now have seen the wisdom of our approach? Because it isn't what it's being presented to be. And it's not clear. They don't talk about it as a real marriage. They talk about it as a penitential marriage, as some kind of an accommodation. But it's clear also, it seems to me, that they understand that they're in some way they're not doing what the Lord has commanded us.
Well, and the Archbishop in the book runs through the history, fascinating history.
Excellent.
And he points out that in the 9th century, there was sort of a liberalized form of allowing remarriage, but it was under duress and pressure from an emperor.
Exactly.
A Byzantine emperor at the time.
No, the whole thing can be traced to this, what they call Caesaropapism. In other words, the undue influence of the emperors on the patriarchs.
Now, I can almost hear, when you were reciting there a moment ago, Jesus' response to the Pharisees, I can almost hear Cardinal Kasper, whom in an America magazine interview recently said, and I quote, "We cannot simply take one phrase of the gospel of Jesus and from that deduce everything. Discipline can change." So I think we have here a theological fundamentalism that is not Catholic. You would respond how?
Well, if we don't take seriously every word of our Lord, I don't know who we are anymore. We're certainly not the church. We're not his mystical body. And secondly, to try to drive a wedge between discipline and doctrinal truth is simply false in the Catholic Church, because every discipline is at the service of a teaching or some sacred reality to safeguard it and to promote it. And that's why the Church has the discipline that she has. If it's being fundamentalist to hold strictly to the teaching on marriage, well, then I'm happy to be a fundamentalist.
I want to talk about something else Cardinal Kasper has raised. He says he is projecting and proposing a merciful process, described thusly, and I quote, "Divorced and remarried people should find a good priest who accompanies them for some time, and if this second civil marriage is solid, then the path of new orientation can end with a confession and absolution." What's wrong with that path of mercy?
What's wrong with the path of mercy is that it doesn't respect the truth. I've accompanied couples who are in an irregular union, tried to help them in the sense that some are in unions where they can't easily leave the union because of children or whatever. Tried to help them to lead a chaste life, to, in as much as possible, respect the truth of a prior marriage. And that's the ultimate goal. But how can now suddenly accompanying them in that way justify telling them a lie about the fact that they're bound to another marriage?
Yeah, he's basically saying if you have a confession and an absolution, you should be allowed back into communion. Well, that's nice for the individual. What does it say about the first marriage? And, and what is the state of the second marriage, which even he says is intolerable? It's intolerable, but it's something we have to accommodate.
Yes, in this whole discussion, I've often thought we ought to at least get back to the principle of non-contradiction. In other words, something cannot be true and not true at the same time. In other words, it's either marriage or it isn't. But you raise a very good point, which many people don't consider. In his conversation, his whole concern is directed toward one party who's now in an irregular union. Yeah. But that party is bound to another spouse.
And children.
And children, possibly. A whole series of relationships with the marriage. I shouldn't call it the first marriage because it is the marriage. And now suddenly to say, well, no, this person can enter a new union, is to say to the wife or the husband, whichever it may be, to possible children and to others who knew them in marriage, that the Church really doesn't respect the indissolubility of marriage. That yes, we teach that, but then on occasion when we act contrary to it. Well, that's simply unacceptable, and it's not good for the person himself or herself who we think we're trying to help by giving them a way out or a second chance, whatever you want to call it, of their situation, because the way to their salvation is to try to live as justly as they can in the sad, the tragic situation of a regular union. And secondly, it's certainly an injustice to the spouse of the person, to children, and to others for whom their married relationship was very important. People don't think about that. We hear this all the time at the Apostolic Signatura, sometimes when there are tribunals who are abusive and giving easy declarations of nullity. And we hear from the other parties and from their children, how can this be? That we were happily married for 20 years and had 4 or 5 children, and then suddenly he got taken up, my husband got taken up with some pretty young woman who expressed an interest in him, and he went off with her and abandoned us. And now the church
is affirming that?
Exactly.
This annulment question, the process of, as you say, declaration of nullity, which is the official term, not an annulment.
Because we're not canceling something that exists. And to annul has 2 senses. You can have the sense that there is something there and you're just wiping it out. You're annulling it. Or it can mean that you're declaring null. So the strict term is to declare null in the sense that we study based on an objective documentation. We study a marriage, and if it's demonstrated that in fact the marriage was null, then we declare it so.
Right.
But we didn't make the marriage null. The marriage was null, and we simply are declaring it. And that in itself is not an easy reality for people to face, but they understand it then.
Now, Cardinal Kasper has called this nothing more than a canonical construction. He says that it's a Catholic way of divorce in a Catholic way and a dishonest way.
That's really offensive because this is a process which has developed along the centuries to respect the truth about marriage. It's a process that's very carefully articulated. If you wanted to read a really beautiful appreciation of the marriage nullity process, in 1944, Pope Pius XII gave a talk to the Roman Rota, the Tribunal of the Roman Rota, in which he sets forth the beauty of the nullity process in the way it gets to the truth about the claim that a marriage is null, so that the parties can really be in peace, and that the declaration of nullity serves their good and is not in any sense a kind of Catholic divorce. But the Cardinal makes this statement. He said, well, these aspects of the nullity process are not of divine law. Of course they're not. But it is of divine law that the Church has to have a process, a means of verifying objectively and with moral certitude a claim of nullity.
And protecting the justice for both parties.
That's of divine law. And the Church, people are now talking about some kind of an administrative process, or that people just go and visit their parish priest and he'd assess the situation. That's not adequate. And what priest would want to take that kind of responsibility himself? No good priest would.
Now, this is a difficult process. I mean, on one level it is. On another level, it's been done so often and for so long. The Church is very adept at using it. But the complexity of this annulment process, the interview of witnesses, you can contest it. The second confirmation, which is something I'd never heard of before.
Well, which is very important in order to keep a check on the process, and also a consolation to those judges in first instance. They know that they do their best, they make a judgment, but they have the consolation knowing it's going to be reviewed on a second level, so that if any way they miss something, it will be caught and corrected.
And so the fast pass to an annulment would be a very bad idea.
That is iniquitous, because it presents itself as some kind of good or nice thing for people. And it may be true, it may not be true, but you don't, when you come to marriage, you don't fool around with maybe. You have to arrive as best you can at the truth of the situation and make a judgment. And the process is as complex as are the situations that lead to a marriage breaking up.
Now, the Synod was to consider the whole annulment process. This was part of the discussion. I imagine it will still be part of the discussion. Will you, as head of the Signatura, be part of that aspect of the conversation in the Synod? Yes,
we all have the opportunity to speak for 4 minutes or 5 minutes. I'm not sure how long it will be. And then we also take part in the discussion groups. And obviously my duty, I'm a member of the Synod as the prefect of the Supreme Tribunal, and my duty will be to point to the truth about the marriage nullity process. If I may say one more thing about that, we study in the Signatura as since 1968 has had this, the supervision of tribunals. We study all of these situations, and our conclusion is the difficulty is not the process. With the process, it's with lack of people who are prepared to carry it out properly. And so if the bishops prepare properly, canon lawyers, canonists, both priests and laity, to carry out the process, there won't be a difficulty. And we know tribunals that work very effectively.
Are you at all disappointed in that this synod and the church fathers were to consider this en masse? The Pope has called for this open dialogue with everyone over these issues of family, particularly the annulment process. Yet, before the synod, in August, the Pope convened a group of experts, a commission of his own design, and they're already charged with making recommendations to reform the annulment process. Hasn't the train already left the station before the synod's begun?
Well, I can't really explain that. It is rather surprising to say the least. I wasn't part of the decision to form this commission, but it would have seemed to me that the synod could have come to the conclusion, well, we need to look at the marriage nullity process. But this seems to be prejudicial in the sense to say, well, we already know that it has to be revised. That, to me, is not a given. I don't see that.
Do you see any reform that's needed in the annulment process? If you were on that commission, would there be recommendations you would make?
I would. If there were, they would be very few and very small. My recommendation is let's find a way to prepare people well to serve in the tribunals and the matrimonial tribunals. And the process, we just had the Dignitas Connubii, the instruction on and this was a product of over 2 years of study. The Code of Canon Law, the 1983 Code of Canon Law, reviewed the whole process for the declaration of nullity of marriage. We need to implement these documents and not this legislation that we have, and not be going off trying now to come up with some form of process or no process at all, which won't be true to the Church's long experience or tradition in handling these situations.
Let's look for a moment at the synod itself. There's a lot of confusion about what this is. Most of this is playing out on the front pages of the papers of the world and in news broadcasts, and that's frankly a very bad conveyor of this kind of complexity, history, and doctrine. Talk to me about the nature of this synod, and are you concerned that some are viewing this, Cardinal Kasper has been very frank about this, that this is sort of a renewal of Vatican II. It's like a reopening of the Second Vatican Council, in that these issues that were once taboo, or indeed were to be no longer discussed under the previous two popes, we're now opening once more. Does that concern you and the way it's playing out in the media?
Oh, absolutely. I've used the term that the synod has been hijacked by the media, but we have to take in the Church a good deal of responsibility for letting that happen and not getting out the clear message with regard to the synod. But let me put it this way. Here we are touching upon something that Pope Benedict XVI explained in a really wonderful way in 2005 in his Christmas address to the Roman Curia, the College of Cardinals, and the Governor of the Vatican City State, which he talked about. It was the anniversary of the close of the council, and he talked about the two kinds of interpretation of the council documents. One, what he called the hermeneutic, or the interpretive key of rupture and discontinuity, which is inherently contrary to the nature of the Church, because the Church is an organic reality. The life of the Church comes to us from the apostles in an unbroken line. The other hermeneutic, the one that is authentic and true, is the hermeneutic of reform in continuity. And so we cannot have at this synod a reopening of questions which have been discussed and to which the Church has responded in an authoritative way. We can certainly hold up those teachings again, but the idea that, for instance, and I trust this wouldn't be the case, but the question of contraception, that would be discussed again, as if there were no encyclical letter Humanae Vitae, which set forth the Church's unchanging teaching in the matter, or in the whole area of human sexuality, the question of things that are intrinsically evil, like sexual relations between people of the same sex and so forth. I mean, I trust that these questions will not come up.
Well, you hear voices suggesting they might come up. Now you're hearing that perhaps contraception in the bond of marriage, that could be acceptable. We're hearing from Cardinal Kasper again, questions of same-sex unions, rainbow families, step families. Should these be part of the Synod discussions?
No, what should be part of the Synod discussion is the family as God created it from the beginning. And if the Synod can attend to that teaching, then it will provide for people who are in all these other kind of situations which are not right, will receive the help that they need. But we can't talk about, for instance, if people are two people of the same sex are living as if they're husband and wife. This is something which is always and everywhere wrong. This is intrinsically evil. We can't suggest that somehow we can incorporate that into our understanding of the family. And so we have to present to those who find themselves in these situations the truth about marriage, which is a call to conversion. I don't know what rainbow family means.
Final question. You have been on the headlines here for many, many weeks. It is often reported that in removing you or not accepting your position on the Congregation for Bishops, that the Pope was somehow disciplining you or trying to publicly say, look, I've removed him from this as a punitive action. Is that how you view it? And do you see, did you interpret it that way for your outspokenness on this, Canon 915 and other matters?
No one has a right to be on these congregations. The Pope freely appoints. And so I was surprised to be taken off the congregation in the sense that I believed that I was working effectively there and certainly trying to serve. But I accepted it. The Holy Father never said anything to me about it, that one way or another, that he was trying to show his displeasure with me or whatever. So I don't know. I can't respond to it other way than to say I just simply have accepted it and have gone on with...
Continued your work.
Exactly, do what I have plenty to do, and I tried to keep at it. And obviously the appointment of bishops is one of the most serious responsibilities in the Church. It was a weighty one, and I just pray for that process because the Catholic Church, by its very nature, depends on worthy shepherds.
Your recommendations to those who are looking in on this process, watching the Synod, what would your advice be to them? What do you hope they take away from this whole quasi-public discussion of family and the issues attendant to it?
What I'm hoping is that the Church is really rich and beautiful magisterium with regard to marriage and the family will be brought to light again and held up. I think, for instance, of the encyclical Casti Connubii of Pius XI. I think of Familiaris Consortio. I think of Humanae Vitae. There's just a whole body of wonderful teaching on marriage and the family, and so I really hope that the Synod will draw us all to go back and to plumb again the depths of that teaching.
Remaining in the Truth of Christ, including the chapter on the annulment process by Cardinal Burke, is available from Ignatius Press at bookstores everywhere and through the EWTN Religious Catalog. When we return, two innovators are responding to global problems. One's mission is to secure clean water for people at home and abroad. Now he's got a bold challenge taking social media by storm. George McGraw of Dig Deep is here. And later, read FRERICHS with a powerful new app that could help your kids' math comprehension. When the World Over continues. Stay right there.
once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. My next guest has been leading a global effort to ensure the right to clean water for every human being in the poorest parts of the world. He also works to raise awareness among the world's richest nations about how precious water resources are. He's the founder and executive director of Dig Deep, an organization that builds sustainable water projects in needy countries, and it was Catholic social teaching that inspired him to follow this path. Here to explain his 4 Leaders Challenge is George McGraw of Dig Deep. Welcome back.
It's nice to
Great
see you,
to see you.
How are you?
Now, let's start with the challenge that is facing you and all of us. What is the situation with the scarcity of water around the world, here and abroad?
Absolutely. We have 2 competing problems. The first is water poverty. Nearly 1 billion people still live in it around the world, some of them right here in the United States.
And that seems incomprehensible to me.
It really is so crazy. Dirty water is killing so many people a day that you could fill 10 Boeing 747s with them.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the same time, we are using water unsustainably in a lot of places. And I'm from California, where we're in the middle of an historic drought and really starting to learn for the first time what it would be to live without water in normal, everyday circumstances.
So you were telling me earlier, people are actually experiencing this. I mean, these are people who, you know, they're in the shower one day and all of a sudden it stops. What's happening?
Just about a month ago, we started to see this spat of water loss in northern and central California. And these people, like you said, go to their taps or to their showers or to their laundry machines, and they go to turn on the tap and nothing comes out because the drought has been so bad that they've lost access at home, and no one's really sure exactly what's going to happen.
And these are private wells that have just run dry.
These are just people's homes.
Now, but that's it, right? It's really just a drought. That's the scarce resource of water here in the United States. Is that the primary source?
Yeah, I think that we need to be smarter about the way we develop as a society. I think in 15 or 30 years we could start to see bigger challenges as water scarcity becomes an issue in the United States, especially in the West. But for now, it's drought.
And these reservations you were telling me, Indian reservations are also depleted of water. How did this happen?
You know, it's not so much a depletion problem all the time. It's surprising to most of us. We think of water poverty, we think of places like Latin America or Africa, but you know, Raymond, 13% of American Indians, I know I've said it on this program before, live without a tap or a toilet at home. And where we work on the Navajo Reservation in New Mexico, that's about 40% of people that just use a simple pit latrine in their backyard and then walk to a local livestock pond or to a stream to collect the water they use all day.
So you are launching this 4 Leaders Challenge with an S. You're
with an S.
Not leader. See, that's a European way of explaining it. 4 Leader Challenge. Tell me what this challenge is. What do you hope to do with it?
Well, one of the primary difficulties in our work is that the Americans that we really seek to engage and the Americans we really seek to unite take water for granted. The average American uses over 400 liters of water per person per day. That's over 105 gallons. And that's just the water we use per person at home. So we're challenging people this month for 24 hours to take their water consumption from 400 liters down to just 4. For 24 hours. So you get a 1-liter bottle of water, you fill it up 4 times during the day, and you use it for everything you do. Cooking, cleaning, drinking.
Bathing,
brushing your teeth, making your dinner. It's definitely not easy, but it's an incredible experience.
And you're asking people, and they have sort of captured this experience, and they're tweeting it out, they're Facebooking it.
Absolutely. I mean, the challenge isn't for everyone, but for the people that have taken it up so far, it's been an incredible, incredible movement. They've been taking videos and pictures and writing tweets and really sharing with their social networks, with their families and friends, what this experience is like. It's been tremendously educational.
Why do you think people are embracing this challenge? I mean, we had the ALS challenge, which kind of ran counter to your challenge.
Sure.
A lot of water was expended. Why do you think people have embraced this, and what do they come away with when it's over?
Well, I think as Americans, we're looking for a deeper experience with the poor. For so long, we've been treated as donors, and we're sort of sidelined in the development process that way. And what's really necessary, not just as Americans, but as Christians, if we're truly to love the poor in a way that radically changes our lives, is an experience of their lives. And so, of course, 4 Leaders is a very temporary thing. Of course, 4 Leaders is in many ways a very simple thing and not nearly as drastic as real poverty. But it's a first step in that direction. I think people get a taste for how valuable and how incredible this thing they've been taking for granted really is, and they can't get enough.
Tell me how Catholic social teaching really inspired this whole effort. How does that fit in? And Catholic schools and parishes are really embracing this, other Christian denominations as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the fundamental tenets of Catholic social teaching is that we're all equal, created in God's image and likeness. And for so long, the way we've approached charity is to split people into two different groups, donors and beneficiaries. And it's really the job of young nonprofits like Dig Deep or challenges like For Leaders to help people break down those barriers and to see not what divides us, but what unites us in that experience, and to reach out to each other in a really more authentic way. And so, like you said, Catholic schools, Catholic parishes, Catholic organizations like Life Teen have taken up this 4-Leader Challenge, and it's been so incredible to watch.
Yeah, it's really a teaching tool. I mean, I can see this working in a classroom setting where, you know, over the weekend the kids have to try this, and they come back and talk about that experience, and it really does, I think, engender a sense of empathy that perhaps none of us have now. I mean, look, we reach for the, you reach for the water bottle, you slug away, you're wasting water by running it all day long. It's not something that's at the top of our minds.
Definitely not. Yes, we thought the same thing. So we developed a 6th to 12th grade curriculum with a bunch of friends.
Really?
Both in Catholic, private, charter, and public schools. And with some of our friends at the United Nations and in other Catholic institutions like some congregations in Rome. And we developed this curriculum that can be used either secularly or also in a religious setting. And because we really wanted to give people, teachers especially, that opportunity for experiential education that so many students are really starved for.
And that's online, that's on the website as well?
It's on the website as well.
Okay, Dig Deep. We'll get to that. I'll announce it at the end.
Good.
What was the first experience that sensitized you, awakened you to this entire water poverty that the whole world is experiencing?
Well, I'm a human rights lawyer by trade, and water is my specific focus, but I worked for a large global development organization very briefly in water and sanitation access, and I was editing reports mostly, but our reports were saying that over 50% of our projects were failing every year. And we were seeing this huge spike in maternal and infant mortality, in a loss of education or economic opportunity. And no one was going back and serving these people as individuals. We were treating them as places to dig a well and move on, treating them as numbers. And for someone that works in human rights, especially someone with a strong core in Catholic social teaching, this is a really hard thing to swallow. These people aren't statistics. They're other human beings just like us that need water as much as we do. And so to treat them as beneficiaries and not as equal partners in this work makes it not only unsustainable, but really immoral.
And you spent some time in Sudan.
Yes, I spend time every year, a couple times a year, in both East and West Africa and all across the United States working with these communities.
Did that at all crystallize this idea for you, that you had to sensitize others to what was really happening on the ground?
Absolutely. I think, if you grow up in a place like South Sudan, you spend your whole day planning around how much water you have. It determines how much time you'll have at home with your children, how much you'll be able to go to school, how many other economic opportunities you can take advantage of. Yeah. And Americans have no similar experience, and so that's really what crystallized this, is seeing these people's daily struggle to really plan their entire lives around how much water access they have.
George McGraw, thank you for being here, and let us know how things turn out, and we'll retweet the progress here. You can find out about George McGraw's work at Dig Deep by visiting their website, and you can take the challenge at digdeep.org. Just click on the banner in the center of the homepage to take the 4 Leaders Challenge for 2014. Before we go tonight, we continue to hear the disturbing statistics. American students are lagging behind most of the world in science and math. My next guest is offering a solution. He's harnessed the power of games and storytelling to inspire kids' curiosity and engagement to make math an adventure. Please welcome the CEO of Primal Math, Reed FRERICHS. Reed, thanks for being here.
Raymond, thank you for having me.
I want to start with the challenge that we're facing here. How does this new app get around the angst? Some kids, I mean, speaking from personal experience, I have heard the weeping in the other room at 9 o'clock at night when my 11-year-old's trying to solve the problem. It carries a lot of anxiety and fear around math. How does this app get around that?
I think what happens with this app is it gets kids out of their head. It's kind of like, as an actor, it makes them focus in the moment, in the present. And so it makes them the star of their story. And so they're playing the game, they're understanding it, they're making decisions, making choices. So it empowers them to learn that way.
Yeah. How is it? It looks at times almost like Minecraft in the way that they can manipulate pieces and parts. What do those games tapping into that we need in this educational realm?
What is tapping into, in our view, is curiosity. It's engaging that curiosity, and it gives kids want to make decisions. They have a natural ability, especially in the K through 3rd grade space, to to solve patterns. You know, they want to recognize patterns and put things together in order. So it comes natural to them, and if we can show them through gameplay, it's very attractive to them.
Where did Primal Math originate? And tell me about this new game, Zombie Fish Bits.
Yeah, zombies are kind of a popular title right now in the movie world as well.
And in the app world.
Yeah, you know, Raymond, it simply originated with just, we couldn't find the games in the App Store or anywhere that we wanted for our kids. And so we simply decided to build the game that we couldn't find. And so we knew that we wanted math with meaning, a very visual, conceptual, fundamental math.
Sort of like the Singapore method.
Exactly.
Which uses graphs and pictures.
Very much so, where their kids are building the problem and then solving it, so they're really understanding the spatial relationships to it all and how it all works.
It also has a whimsical sense. I mean, it almost feels like a cartoon. I mean, a Sunday morning cartoon. It moves on. Tell me about the creative team here, the people you brought, because it wasn't just computer experts. You also had folks on the educational side that are pretty accomplished.
We did. We brought, we have a very established learning specialist named Dr. Martin Fletcher, and Dr. Fletcher had a very successful clinic teaching kids who were coming in with anxiety or learning disabilities, and he was able to accelerate their learning within like 40 hours, 2 grade levels ahead at some point, and a lot of it was just through gameplay and working with these sort of physical manipulatives, and so that's what we wanted to engage in the game.
What is the problem out there? Well, before I get to that question, tell me about the game itself. And we're looking at some video here. There's a lot of fish bouncing around and little blocks. Tell me what's happening.
Yeah, so what we're focused on is a lot is composing and decomposing quantities. So what kids are doing is they're gaining meaning by seeing the quantities and then relating it to the symbol. So they're putting it through the equal sign there, and it goes into the sub, and that's how they put the two together and connect the meaning.
And begin to figure it out. Yeah. What is the challenge? What is the problem with the way schools are teaching math today?
I think it's just an outdated model. It's still, to me, built on the Industrial Revolution, and we're in a technology revolution. We need thinkers. We can't afford to have kids that, I mean, every kid out there is unique and has independent thoughts, and I think right now the school system is kind of crushing that creative thought process. It's teaching to the test too much, and you know, I think everybody sees what happens with Common Core and stuff. So
yeah, no, very focused on the results and these standards, and this does sort of break through that, and it seems to be responding to the marketplace, which is looking for problem solvers and people who can think creatively within this math sphere.
Right, and even from on the side of the Common Core advocates, they really want to create where they can explain math and the conceptual side of it. So,
Reed, what is next? What do you envision as the next step?
Our next step is we're working with the Boys and Girls Club. So we would like to port this game that we have on the iPad and iPhone to Android so we can reach more kids. We're in the process of building a Primal utility app, which is more of a workplace, a sketch pad. So again, you mentioned Minecraft and Legos and stuff where kids can build the problem very visually.
Wow, so they could use it really as a resource to help solve some of the math problems that exist. I imagine with homeschoolers, this would be a really attractive app.
Absolutely. We're building our YouTube channel, which will have a lot of math instruction, animation, so it'll be very visual. Kids will like it and not even know they're really learning math in such a fun way. So,
well, we will continue to monitor your progress at Primal Math in the days ahead. Reed, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Raymond.
You can find out more about Reed FRERICHS Primal Math and their innovative game app, Zombie Fish Bits, to help your kids improve their math skills and have fun doing it. Visit primalmath.com. primalmath.com. That's all the time we have for now. Until next week, the show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. Let me know what you thought of that Cardinal Burke interview. The links are at RaymondArroyo.com. Do not miss next week's show. I'll be talking with acclaimed Scottish singer Susan Boyle, plus an exclusive interview with Father Robert Dodaro. He's the editor of that Remaining in the Truth of Christ book that Cardinal Burke spoke about earlier. We'll talk more about the Synod of Bishops on the Family as it wraps in Rome. In the meantime, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo from Washington, D.C. I'm going to go off and play my zombie fish bits. Bye now.